Hello, Savannah. Hello, Savannah. And welcome to another edition of Kandily Kesha. It is so great to be here with you all this evening on another Monday fun day. Listen, I have two special guests I want to introduce you to. They are two people who are near and dear to my heart, and they are a part of my net weaving circle. It's so good to have God purpose that the two of them connected. I have them coming on tonight to talk about a special launch, the launch of a new show that will provide information, education, awareness, and inspiration. And I'm going to let them tell you more about the show entitled Two African Americans. I love it. I love it. I love it. So without further ado, I want you to hear from local pastor of Radiant Church, Pastor Grimes, and the owner and facilitator of All Things Awesome via the School of Story as well as Abode. So, ladies, take it away. Take it away.
Hello, Kesha. And Emra, it's always so good to see your face on the screen with me. You're muted.
Delightful to be here with both of you. Thank you for having us. Very exciting time for us, and what we have just launched our first episode of our podcast to African Americans.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so who are the subjects of this podcast to African Americans? I see. Wow. I only see one African American before me. So tell me how we're going to break down that first barrier. How are we going to provide information and education for that first dynamic?
Yeah. Well, it's actually kind of a crazy, amazing story. Isn't it always when God has purpose and gets us to live that purpose, which we are. And the book we are also writing to this end, we share a lot more depth, of course. But as our first podcast launch, a little about both of us. So, Valerie, why don't you share your hello, and then I'll share mine, and then we'll put together how we came together.
Absolutely. Two African Americans is centered around Imra and myself as we navigate our world. And the thing about it is, I am an African American woman who, I hope I didn't lose you guys.
You're there.
Okay. An African American woman born at the height of the civil rights movement in 1967. And I actually was born exactly 4 months before Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And so I have watched our world evolve around the treatment of people that look like me, that walk in this skin, that, move and operate as Black people, African American people, our whatever moniker we're going under at that particular time. And my father was a pastor, a Baptist pastor in the South. And so we had many civil rights icons that would come through our home. And the thing about it is we lived very close to Kandily Farm. And so it could be a Black person, or it could be a white person, that as long as they were, I don't call them allies. I say that they are standing with us in solidarity. They would come in and eat at our home. And so we knew the struggle of fighting for our rights to exist as American citizens. And so meeting Imra and hearing more about her story and starting to have a relationship with her, we recognized that we were two women moving and existing in a world that has not always been fair or equal or equitable. And so we've had some pretty tough conversations and decided we might need to share these conversations with others. And so, Em, you go ahead.
And it's been remarkable for us both to see the time of history when we were born, and for me, being born in South Africa during what was coming to the whatever intense part of the apartheid years, and living but a stone's throw, 12 miles or so from where a lot was happening, unbeknown to me, because there was no freedom of press. And so obviously for both of us, there are many details in our early stories, and how that were seeds already planted within us for this work that we are doing, and starting to do together now. So by the time I grew up in a hardworking, mom and dad protected little white girl, all girls white school, not knowing anything different, but feeling in my heart when I'd see anyone not live as comfortably as me, didn't understand it, but deeply disturbed. Not that we were super wealthy, but we had needs met. And then by the time I got married, and we moved to Durban, I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. Apartheid there was not really happening, and the years were coming when Mandela was to become president, and I was very much aware of the conflict between the Zulus and the Xhosas, for leadership in the country. And caught amongst many of those skirmishes, my girls weren't raised seeing color at all. And we decided, my husband then wanted to move to the United States, and we came Maryland, Florida Keys for a long time. Savannah, we've been here now in this area for 12 years. And I don't think I will ever forget the day we were living in the Florida Keys, and I watched the movie Amandla. And for the very first time, the late 1990s, did I find out what happened in my homeland. And I was distraught, ashamed to be a white South African. I didn't know how to deal with all of this, didn't know how to deal with racism that we discovered in America. So because we had come to a place of forgiveness and living together, and we are very happy people in South Africa, no matter which culture we are from, and forgiveness was there, and moving forward was easy. And when we moved to this country, to discover that I was not liked because my skin was white, and I need to be careful where I go, and that there was so much tension here, it was an enormous shock. And so over the years, and then coming to Savannah these 12 years ago, and as I interviewed a ton of women my first few years here for a book that I was writing, I realized what I call there many pockets in our city of people.
Yes.
And I got to, because of my interviews, understand a little more of how it works in the South, that people don't necessarily speak about what's not okay. And so I will never forget the day that I asked a 100 Black man. I was at some event for youth, and I said, didn't know much. And I said to him, "Is there racism in the South?" And he said to me, and I said, in this city. And he said, "Well, let me put it to you this way. There is a slave mentality." And I had no clue what he was talking about, but I made it my business to discover. And over these years, and as we are writing our book now and digging very deeply into the history of our city, not just African Americans and white, but all the other people, and why they came, and what happened to them when they came, and the deep sadnesses and the great strengths, and just the mix of it all. And then for Valerie and I to discover that we, when we found each other and we started speaking, I don't believe I'm wrong to say, Val, that we both, because of experiences we've had with people, we call it other. that are other than us. We both have a little hedge about us. We both have a little place of protection for different reasons and for different experiences. And in our podcast, we're going into these things that we've discovered and deeply into these conversations. And I don't know that we were drawn to each other as God does, but there was a protective wall, and it takes time to know, do we really, my heart trusts this person, but does my head trust this person? Because of the things we have had in the past. And so I think the more we've shared and discovered, we have the same vision of bringing diverse people together in our city. We have the same vision of how to actually do this. So yeah.
It's been one of those things, Kesha, where I think at first, like she said, can I was like, can I have this kind of conversation with her? And what we found is that we are able to just, go behind those protective barriers and expose ourselves and start having the hard conversations, talking about things about how we're perceived differently, even in the neighborhood we're in. The first episode kind of gets into the different experiences that we've had. And I will just kind of give you a hint. Hers were a bit more positive than mine. So listen to that first podcast, and I think you'll get a feel for where we're going with this. Our whole point, or I think the whole basis for it, is to remember that really and truly we are more alike than we are different. One of my favorite poets, I said that so many times, Maya Angelou, and she would say, hey, we are more alike than we are different. We have the same desires, the drive to see our lives bettered. But because of this thing called racism, because of this thing that we've allowed to come into our hearts, we've been holding people back. And so I think we're having some of those conversations, talking about trust, talking about that, people saying they don't see color. What does that really mean? And, how can we begin to break the barriers and say, yes, we are from the South. We live and exist in Georgia, but we are people who have ambitions and desires, and people who look like me have ambitions and desires. And how do we make this easier or better? So those are some of the questions we're tackling.
And one of the things that I'm learning is I have taught so often in corporate training about respect and bias and prejudice, and they're easy things to slide out. You can research, you can read what it all means and whatever, but it's very different to live it out than to just speak about it, because truly living it out, as we are learning when we have these hard conversations, it makes you know that I am feeling uncomfortable. And whether it comes from my personality style, which doesn't like conflict, and here it's fun because here we're different. I would never march and picket. And I think sister here is the first one to go and march and picket. So I'm a peacemaker, and she is a warrior. I am a warrior for souls and for people to be respected and treat each other with kindness and to learn what love truly is. But I will not walk on a street and go fight in that way. I will fight in a different way. So we all have different ways we approach these complexities, but at the same time to be able to dig deep enough to know that, and I love one of the things that I have grown to understand. We spoke on maybe it's the podcast that is tomorrow, about being uncomfortable and living in comfort, and how it is uncomfortable. Why should I want to get rid of my bias towards some other that are others than me? Well, if it makes me uncomfortable, why should I do that? Why don't I stay in my own bubble? But if you really want to create a community that thrives, not just survives, you have to be able to see one another. And we love our South African word siyabona. Siyabona means I see you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say it back to me is that you see me. So we have determined to see one another, to see our neighbors with, and it covers socioeconomic. It's another very uncomfortable place to step out of the zone of comfort.
Yeah. And so you go ahead.
These talks are very important. When I think about the purpose of your show and the impact that it could make, I think about just those tall talks, starting the conversation. Oftentimes, in conversation with people who are of different backgrounds or race or even gender, we say things casually and loosely, not recognizing that it's insulting or disrespectful. But for me, less than insulting, it's respectful. You know, people just want to be treated with respect, and that respect starts with words. Words have power, words have meaning. So it's interesting that you have that as a focus and a theme in terms of what we say to each other and how we say it. And I would imagine, Imra, you stated that you had to first trust Pastor Grimes with your head, but I think it's our heart. I think it's our heart that we often guard before our head, right? Because day to day, one on one, we can recognize straight away the value that we can glean from somebody or give to somebody. But it's those past experiences where we've had our hearts broken or we've had our heart shattered that causes us not to go all the way there. Like, I can do business with you, but can I let my heart open freely to love again a person who's different? And you know, it's so weird when I think about race and ethnicity and gender, particularly on this common soil that we all live on. When we talk about differences, we're really not that different. We're really not that different. And as I chart my course in this world of politics, when I tiptoe through the tulips of our community and the differences and the complexity of those whom I seek to serve, it can seem very daunting when you give consideration to male, female, black, white, young, old, Democrat, Republican, gay, straight. But you know, there was a time where I just decided in 2019 when I charted my course for public office and I saw the tenets of the city's charter, and I learned straight away that the same goals and the same intentionality that I set forth to serve this community when it came to hunger and homelessness, when it came to senior services and youth services, when it came to serving victims of rape and child molestation. You know, I took the same approach. It did not matter. It did not matter because if you're hungry, I can't look at you as a Democrat or a Republican. If you have been raped, I can't look at you as black or white. If your child was molested, I can't serve you based on your political party or your sexual affiliation. And so I think once we remove that, and what I've been saying to people as of late, because the first thing people ask me who are deep seated into politics is, what am I running as? And I said, I'm running as a person who have a heart for Savannah and who wants transferable skills to transform this community back to the place where citizens who were born here, raised here, grew up here, retired here can call her home. And so I further acknowledge that a lot of times we put all of these isms in the way and all these divisions in the way, so that we are shifting our focus off of what really matters to us when it comes to our taxes, when it comes to what comes to crime, when it comes to issues related to the core of our community. If you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on the policies that this council is or is not setting forth. And so um, the whole notion of standing up and speaking out for community, I see this as a platform where you can use that to sort of help us navigate through these waters in this political environment, just helping to guide people to recognize that you have to be laser focused on the issue, and then we can deal with these pieces that are so important to us, just as human beings. This is
Yes.
important. What are you most looking forward to in terms of your platform? Who will you have as your guests? What points would you like to make?
Yes. And you just said it. I think the whole thing behind our podcast is that we want more people having these conversations, meaning that you feel comfortable working with, being a friend with, working on, taking care of people in your community, and stop seeing, sections, but to begin to see people. And that's, in fact, this next podcast, we're talking about that, that statement of not seeing color. And we're also talking about the statement of making sure that we're removing barriers for people. So tough conversations that we're having. And when we recognize, just like Martin Luther King Jr. said, that we're looking at people not because of the color of their skin. And I think one of the comments came up that talked about this whole race thing. It is a man-made construct. But once you get beyond that and you begin to see the content of a person's character, who are they? What are they bringing to the table? And how can we work together? And that's what Em and I are really letting people know, that we are working together in an environment where, if I am feeling uncomfortable, I feel safe enough now that we can have those conversations, and we can pull down the mask, and we can begin to work together, because both of us, I consider both of us hope dealers. We're hope dealers. We are here telling you what life can be. And if we can't have safe conversations together, then how do we deal hope? I believe that there is a place of existence that, like you said, we can get into the nitty gritty of helping people come together in our community. And it's not going to happen with all of these walls we've erected. One that we happen to be facing head on, of course, is that one of race and socioeconomics, all of that stuff. Because I'm a Black woman living in America, Kesha, and so are you. And we have some privileges. We have to stop and even acknowledge that, because a lot of times people looking at us, oh, well, they're Black and they're this. We live in some privilege. We do. We gotta socioeconomically, we're comfortable. We're not wealthy. Unless, if you are, let me know, Kesha, so I can come move in with you.
No,
but we're comfortable.
I'm still trying to get around your statement there. I'm still trying to figure out
where's that privilege at, girl? Where's that? But there is some. There is privilege, and we do have to admit that, because when we look at othering people, it is not just the othering of race or the othering of gender. It is the othering of socioeconomic standing. It is the othering of ableness. Em and I, we talk about that too. Her daughter has a disability, and we talk about that differing, that othering of people who have a disability, and how do we cope with that, and how do we deal with that? So we are digging in, because just like you said, at the end of the day, that person that did not have something to eat for dinner, They want to know, how do I now get to a different standing, a different place? And this whole skin thing that we're in, we got to push past it. And so we're hoping that our conversations will cause some other people to start having those conversations. And we get to the bottom line, which is, how do we get hope to people? How do we get hope to every person? Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, male, female, able, disabled. How do we get hope to them so that we can live together in community and begin to make a difference?
And I love what you said. We are privileged, and I think that word can mean so much. I feel privileged because I can use all my limbs. I can think, I can speak, I can see. I have a bed to sleep in. I have food. I have a car that I can drive. I have ability to take the gifts that I have and make the world a better place. And I think at the end of the day, we think so incredibly about purely just socioeconomic being privileged, but we're in a country where we do have freedom. We do have freedom of speech. As I said, I have lived in one when there was a long season when it was not there, and what it did to people because of that. So I feel, as long as there's a song that speaks about it, I have breath and voice within me. Can it do good? Can it help others learn to see that if you truly want to be happy and live in a good community, you have to learn, number one, to respect one another. But can it get deeper than that? And I think at the end of the day, as we have had all our conversations, we will be able to perch on the depth of the conversation. Can we actually love one another, different as we are, because we are all really the same?
Absolutely.
I love that.
And
Go ahead, Pastor.
you know, Kesha, being a pastor, I have to bring it all back to the word at some point. There's a scripture that we are building our church on. You know that we are a new church here in Savannah, and we are intentional about being multicultural, multi-ethnic, intergenerational, and we are making sure that that is a part of our foundation. There'll be people that come in and see that, and they're like, "Hey, that's not for me." And then there are going to be those that come in. We just had a new family come in, and they are like embracing that. They are just so in love with that concept and that idea. But the Word of God tells us in Revelation 7:9, this is when John began to look and he saw the people that were in heaven. He says, I looked, and there were people from every tribe, every tongue, every nation, and they were all singing together, hallelujah, holy, holy to the Lamb. So how do we think we're going to deal with it in heaven if we're not even taking care of it down here? So my thought is, we will be intentional about those things. And a lot of people say that, and then it's like they want everybody to be like them. So like, come to my church. We're multicultural, but you got to act just like me. My thing is, no, I want to hear your voice. I want to know how you're feeling, what you're thinking, because that is what makes this whole thing work. And so you may come in on a Sunday as our Hispanic population grows, and you may come in and we're worshiping in a Hispanic song, because why would I have them come if we're going to say, but you've got to sing and do the things the way we sing and do them? Just like she said, we want you to know that you're seen, that you're heard, and that you're loved. And I think that's the kind of respect you're talking about. That's the kind of respect it's going to take to change the face and the feel and the understanding of our community. Because if we start thinking like that, then policy will follow it.
Well, and that's what's most important to me. And that's where the real work begins. And that's where real change happens. And as you stated, so often, even within our local government, people just talk about equity. We talk about race relations. We form committees. We have state studies. We crunch data. We form task force, but nothing really happens. And when you see Like in my case, where I've been in office for more than 3 years now, and I can't say to you one single policy that we have incorporated where we are moving the needle for the most vulnerable race in Savannah. And that's the race of African Americans, particularly African American men and boys who are dying at rates far greater than any other race in the city. And for me, that's the most important element that we can work on, tackle in terms of helping families. Because when you deal with an issue like that, as you know, unfortunately, so well, Pastor Grimes, it erodes at the fabric in the core of a family. The PTSD, the depression, the anxiety, all of those issues that preclude individuals from continuing to live healthy lives, to be a part of a plugged in, intact family. It starts to break down the foundation of the family. And so when we look at equity policies or opportunities within the city of Savannah, I love what you all are doing, because it's this kind of foundational work, this kind of community work that will help to guide and start these conversations. But we have been at this now for far too long in our world. And it's time to start making shifts and changes where the rubber will meet the road and people can actually feel the difference. And the only way you feel difference in municipal and local government is through policy initiatives, presentations, ultimate passage, and adoption, right? And so what does that look like in a city of Savannah where we have more than 600 permits, license for restaurants and bars in our city that serve alcohol, but less than 10 of those 607, less than 10 are actually owned. And so that's an economic policy, that's a race relations policy opportunity. So when we're not engaging and when we're not tackling those type of dynamics, where are we with our housing policies, holding our housing authority accountable when you have more than 90% of the population who live in public housing African American, and we have nearly 60% of the units closed. Folks can't use Section 8 vouchers. And then you have the other dynamic where I had a white female reach out to me and say to me, Kesha, between me and my husband, we have 4 degrees and I can't find an apartment. I can't afford an apartment in Savannah. And so yes, you all continue the conversation, continue the talks, because you are going to help with the groundswell to help people ultimately get it. But when they get it, they have to understand and recognize that the policies that we will put forth, the policies that we will adopt, is going to help the whole Savannah to be okay. There's a saying that says, when the big ship comes in, the whole tide rises, right? And so we want the whole tide of Savannah to rise up with the least of those who have been underserved for so terribly long. Tell us, when can we catch the show and on what platform?
So it pops up every Wednesday. So our last one was last week. I've got to see if it's on iTunes yet. But if you do go to our Facebook, Instagram, you will be able to see the links for them there. And shortly they'll be across all platforms, and not hard to remember, to African Americans.
Well, let's plunge over into the world of our Black media and all things relevant. I'm sure Mr. Hall would welcome you all with open arms on this platform. He's hosting over 25 shows right now. I don't have that. Probably going to get me because, well, just put it in the chat how many shows you're hosting, sir. But it's been this platform has been a blessing for me because with my busy schedule, I can just show up usually 2 minutes before showtime, as you saw. And they do everything for me, and the engineers are exceptional. And it's just another opportunity to spread the word on a pre-existing platform with thousands of followers. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited. I've wanted you all on before now, but I'm glad you were able to commit tonight. And I'm looking forward to being a guest as well. So
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We actually are looking to bring on guests that can speak into the different topics. So we will be reaching out to you. And I will say, I think it's the next episode, and we pre-recorded a couple of more episodes, where we're addressing that whole thing about our young Black boys and young Black men and how they are viewed and seen. We're having that conversation, y'all. We're digging in. So come on in and listen, because I believe that the conversations precede action. But you're looking at two women, Kesha, who are not satisfied with just conversations. We know that we have to put our faith into action. And so we're looking for opportunities and ways to not just talk about it, but to be about it. So
well,
absolutely.
y'all to work, ma'am. You will be working.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You have been delightful. Are there any upcoming events or special services at Radiant or Abode?
Indeed, they always are. So every Sunday we have dinner church, so you can come and get a meal and listen to an inspiring conversation where it is like sitting around table with family. Some music, prayer time, talking, listening, growing, learning, crying. It's an amazing experience. 11 o'clock every Sunday.
And
We have
I know where Abode is, but tell everybody else where Abode is.
2204 Cedarway Road in Savannah. And
Savannah.
also, May 20, Saturday morning, we are having our Tea Time Stories of Savannah. And we will be gathering there 10 till 12. We have a fabulous speaker that will be sharing a fun bit of poetry. That will be one of our local poets in town, having some tea together, getting to know each other, being family, and building on everything we do, the same concept of bringing in diverse people to just become community and to be able to get to know one another. That's when you realize that you're actually all the same, and our differences are beautiful, and they make the world more colorful and richer.
Yes. And I just want to say something too, Kesha. At Radiant on Sunday mornings at 11, like she says, we gather around the table and we do what we say. We have a meal and a message. We're a dialogical church. I'm one of those people, I tried that just standing up and preaching, and it wasn't who I was cut out to be. I know that there are people in the room that are smarter than me, that know more than me, and that, that God speaks to all of us. And so we generally have a moment in our message. I deliver the message, or whoever God has called, because like she says, we bring diverse voices before our congregation, but there's always questions and interaction. So when I say dialogical, there may be a question that I pose to the audience and give them an opportunity, the congregation, to answer and to talk about it from their point of view. Because like I said, we could be up there where I'm pointing my finger and telling you, or we can begin to do this together. And so we do church together. And so if you're looking for something like that, or want to just see, well, my goodness, what does she mean by that? Come on over, 11 a.m. 2204 Skidaway Road, Savannah, Georgia. We'd love for you to come and experience that. And M has International School of Story. She is collecting one-page stories for how hope enters your life. And it may be from the perspective of how God made the impossible possible. And so she's has these stories displayed and the artwork displayed. And when I tell you that my sister, there are stories from people in India, they're from Africa, from all over the world, because we truly believe that we are more alike than we are different. And so how can our stories inspire others?
Because everyone's story matters.
Yes.
I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. And I love the two of you. And I'm so glad that my paths crossed with both of you. I can pinpoint the moment and the time I met both of you. And it's not often that I, or probably anyone, can do that. But some pivotal moments in my life where I was making major decisions, and to see that that connection has exceeded beyond me, and the two of you have connected. So I feel like I did my job. I did my job. I did my job. We're looking forward to more great things. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will see you at Abode/Radiant sometimes in the near future. And keep the invitations coming. And if you will, take some time and put that information in the chat, please. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you.
Thank you for
Definitely will
having
do
us.
that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
not a problem. Listen, now I want to talk to you all about the latest and the greatest. The Keisha Gibson Carter for mayor campaign is still moving. We are having a phenomenal time out meeting and greeting. A lot of my activity, y'all, is intentional. It's deliberate and it's by design. It gives me an opportunity, and when I say intentional, it gives me an opportunity to hear from my people. So we're not out just having fun, which I often do when I'm in the company of good folks and good music and good food. I'm looking at my cheeks tonight. I need to back up from that good food. um, but in all seriousness, when I'm out, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about what your desire is for Savannah, what your needs are from Savannah. Generally, after I leave an event, I leave with a list of about 4 or 5 items to follow up on if I'm not sending it in to the city manager or staff in real time. And so that's what we are supposed to be for you. That's what we're supposed to do. In 2019, when I ran for public office, to advocate for you, to speak up, speak out, and hold the powerful accountable to make sure that the resources of the city of Savannah were being appropriately directed into the areas where they were most needed. In addition, we wanted to inspire you. My goal was to inspire you to engage in the political process. And I'll tell you this one thing, whether you like it, dislike it, or hate it, or love it, there has never been a time ever in the history of Savannah than now where people of all walks of life are more engaged, more educated, more knowledgeable of the political process. You all now know what's really going on. And it's because we have raised the bar. Myself, Alderwoman Blakely, and Alderwoman Lanier, we have shared our experiences under the Gold Dome into your homes. And we have come in and we have humbled ourselves to where you now feel like you can reach us and touch us and talk to us. And so that's the type of inspiration that I'm most proud of. And in doing all of that, we've made ourselves accessible to you. We have made ourselves accessible to you by coming to your events, expanding our experience under the Gold Dome into the outer reaches of our community, letting you know what's on the agenda, letting you know what's going on in the 1st through the 6th districts, letting you know how much money we are spending or who we're not spending it on. We've done those things with regard to advocating for reduction in property taxes, having you not vote for a T-SPLOS, a transportation tax, helping you understand what the SPLOS dollars are used for and what they were not used for. You know the tenets of the charter. You know who your district representative is. You know the purpose of the at-large members of council. You know who the chair is. It's still me, y'all. I'm still the chair, but guess what? I don't care about that chair because I'm going to be your next mayor. And so with that, we're here. We're here, and we have not done all of this work in vain, despite the fact that we haven't made all of the changes that need to be made. And so what we need you to do, we need you to send us back to City Hall. We need you to send us back to City Hall so that we can continue to work on what your desire is. I had the opportunity recently to present to a group of pastors. And in that presentation, I just made it real and made it plain. And I'm going to share that with you in another show, some of the dialogue we had. But ultimately, one of the pastors asked, well, what are you going to do when you become mayor? And I submitted to him straight away and said, that's the problem, sir. I said, that's the problem. And he looked at me like I had four heads. Uh, the problem, sir, is for far too long, the citizens of Savannah have looked to the mayor for what he or she is going to do. And that's why he or she have done nothing, because it's what they wanted to do or what they didn't want to do. And when we are starting from a place where we say, what are you going to do, Madam Mayor? What are you going to do? No. Because what I want to do, it may not be what you want for the first district. What I want to do in the fourth district may not be what you need in the sixth district. I can tell you that I'm smart enough, I'm intellectual enough to come up with 3 planks to a campaign. I can tell you that I want to reduce crime. I can tell you that I want to reduce poverty and homelessness. I can tell you that I want to roll back the millage rate and reduce property taxes. I can tell you that I want to increase programming for youth in our communities. I can tell you that I want to wake up the sleeping giants in each of our neighborhoods and offer more recreational outlets and activities and facilities and grounds for our youth. I can tell you all of these things. I can tell you what we need to do to make sure that everybody is paying their rightful share. I can tell you how I want to build and uplift small marginalized businesses. I can tell you all of those things. But is it what you want? Or do you want that in addition to something else? It is only when you allow yourself to think long enough, to be strategic long enough, to actually say it out loud or put it to paper. It is only then that you are able to hold me accountable when you've told me to do something. You've given me a charge. You haven't listened to a charge. You've given me a charge. And so for far too long, we have had leaders in this community, majority African American leaders that we've had in this city and in this county. Right now, the two most powerful leaders in this county, in this city, are two African American men who both live in the poorest, most underserved, underrepresented, most neglected district in this city and county. How's that for race relations? When each of them, with the stroke of a pen, can direct resources just like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to now start doing is just pay attention. Pay attention to the obvious. Don't allow yourself to be sold a dream simply because of relationship, friendship, and kinship. It shouldn't matter whose church you go to or who's been playing piano at your church for X number of years, or who was over your child's youth program, or was your daddy's principal when he was at Beach High School. That should not matter when it comes to your public safety, when it comes to your tax dollars, when it comes to wasteful spending. What should matter to you is that you are living in a community where you and your family members feel safe. That's the number one goal of a leader, is to make sure that their residents are safe and secure. And for me, secondly, it's to make sure that we're taking care of the least among us, but also for those of means, to make sure that we're not robbing you. We're not raising your taxes. We're not spending wastefully and passing on the cost to you. And so we need your help. We're going to take some time every week to express to you how much support we need. We crunched some numbers and turned in our first report for our campaign, and we are just under $7,000 or $8,000. We've had a little over $2,000-$3,000 in expenses. And so we have a lot more coming up and a lot more to do. And guess what, y'all? I got a sign that we're going to win. I was feeling it for the last three weeks to a month. All these signs were just showing me that we were going to win. What was the sign? They were stolen. That was the sign. The sign was my signs were stolen. So I thought, people don't steal folks' signs who are losers. Only winners are impacted. Listen, I'm going to ride this thing out. I want you to see. I identified one of the culprits after the news story that wasn't so well put together. But I'm grateful to my campaign manager, who is my husband. Many of you know Coach Sam Carter. He is among the winningest coaches in the city of Savannah. And so he's been coaching me on council my whole time. And he is the head of my campaign, as he is the head of my household. He is the person that I trust most with everything. And so we are dedicated, just as we have dedicated our lives and our families have sacrificed to community and social services. And so we're going all the way. You all are going to get an incredible first man. This will be Savannah's first Black man. Savannah's first Black man. He's all y'all's. He's all y'all's. So listen, I want you to go to my website. It is kgc68mayor.com. kgc68mayor.com. This is a grassroots campaign. I'm asking that you share that link with everybody you know, kgc68mayor.com. And if there is anything that I have ever done to provide support to you or somebody you know, or if my efforts on council are pleasing to you in any way, we need your support. We need your support. And so I'm asking you to pledge any amount by clicking on the donation link. And that's kgc68mayor.com. Go to that link. And I want to say to those of you who have generously donated, I cringe every time I get a donation or a check from somebody, because it's like, I hate money in politics, but I got to do it. I got to do it. I'm so grateful to each of you. I'm so grateful to each of you for your support, for your dedication. And I know in these times it's very difficult to give freely for something like politics. So we thank you for your sacrifice. Also on my website is a tab that says get involved. So if you want a yard sign, if you want a t-shirt, if you want a decal, if you want a button, if you want a keychain, all of that can be secured by signing up at that website, kgc68mayor.com. I want to send a special shout out to the Longshore Women Wives of Shoreman Wives of Savannah. They did an incredible photo shoot this past week. But where my signs are concerned, we, after having more than 15 of my signs stolen from prime key spots that are on private property where I got permission, I was alarmed and reported it. And so in reporting it, a subsequent news story ensued. And we just wanted to tell the public what was happening. And telling the public what was happening, I was so grateful that I've had people actually call and say, I saw these guys taking your sign. One description was well, I won't give it away because it's still an investigation. But I did learn today. Do we have those pictures to share? A resident here in Savannah actually took pictures of one person taking my signs. And just as I thought, not that one, those are my signs. This guy who works for the city of Savannah, I don't know if he works for Savannah or not, or where he got the truck, but this guy was taking my signs off of private property. And I was told by code compliance that no staffer had ever taken a sign, Alderwoman Carter, because all of your signs are on private property. We don't have any problems with you, Miss Carter, but for some reason, residents in this area captured this guy taking my signs. And so when I notified the city manager, He said to me, "Oh, that was somebody from Park and Tree. They sometimes remove signs too." Mm-mm, mm-mm. Not on private property. They should not. And I don't ever recall Park and Tree staffers removing political campaign, not 4x4s on stakes that are drilled into the ground. I also learned that a person, a business owner, who allowed me to affix my sign on their property was also cited by code compliance for a building violation that was so frivolous and far-fetched. And when I asked for the 311 report that triggered the violation, or the citation, I should say, I was told that there was none. And that there was none because the code compliance officer just happened to be driving through the neighborhood that he or she had been driving through for many months previous to the campaign and never cited the property. It was only cited once my sign was there. And my sign was also stolen from that location. And to further add to the complexity and lunacy of everything, I was ultimately told today that my sign that was being removed by that city of Savannah worker, can you flash those again? Apparently, it was moved by accident. Really? So the sign is in a wide open, vacant lot where I have permission, and this guy had nothing else better to do but to go over and remove the sign. So this is the part of the story that the media left out. And, oftentimes they, influence things in a different way. It's never as it's presented. And that's okay. I think my husband did a great job of sort of laying out the details of what the facts are. And the facts are uh, over half of my 4x4 signs, the only signs that I have. I don't have yard signs yet, y'all. I got to raise some more money for yard signs. They cost more than the big signs, believe it or not. But you can also go on and put your address in and tell me where to bring your sign. And you do not have to pay for yard signs. We're not charging for yard signs. Nonetheless, it's disheartening to me to know that city staff is being used in this way. These people, I'm pretty sure, do not have any issues with me. I know that they are being directed by the leader of this administration to do the things that they're doing. This is the type of behavior that mimics other abusive behaviors within this administration, as staff is used in ways that's not consistent with their basic responsibilities. And it's unfortunate that there is no accountability, but I digress. If I'm vying for the top job of the city of Savannah, surely campaign signs are not going to derail my intentions or stop me. Signs do not vote. Nonetheless, signs do influence, and it's a public showing of support, and we appreciate that. It's a part of the it's a part of the democratic process that we are afforded. And so we would hope that people will let this campaign play out until we win. And, it'll all be over soon. Listen, I love you, Savannah. And we're looking forward to continued service. And we may do a special report on this whole dynamic, because the more I hear, the more I'm told, I'm like, did you really just tell me that out loud? You think I'm supposed to believe that? Don't you know I'm going to be the next mayor of Savannah? You can't just tell me what I want to hear. We have work to do. Listen, y'all, I love you. Have a good night.
I like that.